Welcome to the cockpit. My name's Ryan, and I'll be your pilot tonight. I am joined alongside my co-pilot, 𝐗-𝐿 of Jets X Factor. Michael, how you doing tonight?
About as well as you can after another 40 burger given up.
Oh, absolutely horrible. Absolutely horrible. Guys, if you're just popping in, don't forget to hit that like button on your way in. I'm going to have Michael here for first half hour, and then we're going to jump over to some questions from you guys. I'll get the link in the chat at some point, and you guys could hop on and we could discuss a little bit about the Jets' loss to the Buffalo Bills and the state of the Jets and everything like that. But Michael, I'm going to throw it to you first. Jets lose 45-17. What were your takeaways from the game?
Yeah, I think you have to start with the defense and how, obviously the quarterback is the biggest thing, but for me, the defense and just the continued historically bad pace that they're on is obviously the main story, I think. Because I think even with all the injuries that they had, and we knew there were holes, even if they were fully healthy, we knew there was going to be process, but for them to be bad to this extent is definitely well beyond what anybody was ready for. So it's definitely something that, as committed as they are to the long-term process and just installing the scheme and developing the talent, nothing positive is going on right now for the defense. So they do have to, even though they're not competing for a playoff spot, trying to win games necessarily, they have to be a lot more just competent than this. The bar is not high. I said at halftime of this game that it would be good if they could just hold the Bills to 25 points or less. And they obviously went way beyond that. So the bar is not high. They just need to be competent right now with how many injuries they have. Just have some of the young guys contribute to success, guys who are going to be here for a long time. But none of that is happening, and they're playing the worst defense that they have in the history of this team in terms of points per game and yards per game. So the defense has to be a lot more confident. And then obviously at quarterback, Mike White comes out and makes the decision easy going forward with the way he played. Obviously, as soon as Zach Wilson is healthy now at this point, there isn't much of a decision to be made. So, which I think in some ways is good for Wilson's sake in terms of pressure on him. And just getting a chance to get him back into the lineup without much controversy can be a good thing for him. But obviously it is disappointing to have the hope and the fun and the hype of the Mike White train come to an end. But pretty much another full-fledged disaster for this team.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw the title of this. I labeled the title NY Jets Therapy, and we got some pretty funny things rolling in. Dark Soldier goes, hello, my name is Dark Soldier, and I'm a Jets fan. So this is therapy for you guys. Let it all out. I know a lot of us are frustrated. I'm at the point where I can't even lose my mind on this sort of stuff because I'm almost numb to it. Like after the New England game, I think it hurt a little bit more. This game, I kind of expected more of a blowout. I think the Bills are the cream of the crop when it comes to the AFC. Now, maybe that's not the case. Maybe the Titans wind up being that, or the Chiefs now that they're clicking. But the way the Bills reacted to losing to the Steelers week 1 and then throttling the Dolphins week 2, I kind of thought that was going to be what was going to happen after getting embarrassed by Jacksonville last week. Defensively, not good. Really not a great performance. The running, we can't stop the run. And it just feels like we're not playing to our players. We're trying to stick exclusively to the scheme. So I want to get your thoughts on that, I guess. That we heard some comments from Robert Saleh saying that, we're trying to do it like our way. Do you see a stubbornness between, a similarity between what Adam Gase was doing last year and what we're getting out of Robert Saleh this year?
Yeah, I think there is, to an extent, I think there is a little bit of that. I think it's clear. Well, I think at this point it's clear what their philosophies are. They want to stick to their scheme that they're trying to install long term, and they're willing to go through the growing pains, and they don't want to sacrifice the long term vision of establishing that scheme, getting guys used to it, for the sake of short-term gains. And there's pros and cons to that. There are positives, and the positives are it's easier for the front office to identify the talent that you need when it's clear what type of scheme you're playing. And if you can find talent for that scheme, you can be really good, which we saw in San Francisco. But the problem is, it can take a few years to get there, and it takes a lot of patience. And if you're not going to be willing to adjust in season, which we're not seeing, then you're not going to be able to improve until you get the chance to get to the off season and make the moves to get the talent that you need to run that scheme. So it's going to be harder to overcome injuries. It's going to be harder for this team, as young as they are, as banged up as they are, to make move, to improve in season. So it is, I think, as much as I can see where they're coming from, and I think it's good that they're committed to the long term vision and there's positives in doing that because down the line, as guys like Bryce Hall, Brandon Eccles, all the other young guys in this defense rack up reps in this scheme, they'll get used to it and they'll go through these growing pains. And it's not as if we're constantly rotating schemes, giving them new assignments and, maybe delaying that growth a little bit. At the same time, though, that, like I talked about earlier, if you're giving up 25 points a game, even, 28, whatever, then, at that point, then it's acceptable. But when you're giving out, when you're giving up 45 points 3 times in 4 games, then, I think that approach has to go out the window a little bit. As much as you want to stay committed to what you're doing and build long term, no one's developing when you're getting beaten this badly. You have to make at least subtle changes. I understand that, you don't have to come out and be the Patriots playing a different game plan every single week, and the change to being an all-out blitzing, man-to-man defense. No one's expecting you to completely overhaul your scheme and your identity. No one's asking for that, but just little changes because this team gets beaten by the same things every week. Delayed handoffs in the run game, traps and counters in the run game, screenplays, trick plays. It's the same thing every single week. We've seen it since pretty much the first Patriots game, really since the Panthers game. So no one's asking for a drastic change, and we understand that they're playing the long term, which is great. And over into next year and 2 years, it could definitely be a great approach if they get the right talent. And a lot of the talent that they did pick up isn't on the field right now. Carl Lawson, Joyner, May, Curry. So it can work out long term, and we do have to be willing to deal with the growing pains. But growing pains to this extent is definitely not acceptable, and I don't think there's much positive development going on that could be built upon going forward when you're losing this badly and guys are putting out so many bad reps on tape. So I just think more subtle adjustments can be made. We need a middle ground. Patience is good, but they're being a little too stubborn with sticking with exactly the same thing every single week. They're consistently soft on the first 2 downs, and then they blitz and play man on 3rd down, and that's when teams get them with screens. Then the first couple downs, it's easy to run the ball on them, and it's easy. It's easy to run the ball in the first 2 downs because they play soft, and then 3rd down is when they get hit with screens. The teams know the blitz is coming, so they're very predictable. They're very vanilla, and I think they can mix it up a little bit more. One of the big topics in this game was Bryce Hall and whether he should have been shadowing Stephon Diggs. And again, I get it. It's not part of what they do defensively. And if they're playing well, no one would question it. But sometimes you just have to make subtle adjustments and play a little bit differently. Play a little bit differently to adapt to your talent, adapt to the other team's strengths and weaknesses. And this team's not really doing much of anything. So I think they do need to be better at adjusting to an extent. But at the same time, I do think that we should understand there is a commitment to the long-term vision. There is a severe lack of talent because of the injuries, and that in time, all of this can work out, and there can be benefits to it if they get the right talent. But at the same time, we should hold the coaching staff accountable and expect more adjustments within the season, because I think that's, as much as it help you win games, it is important for developing talent too, because guys have to be a part of succeeding and playing well in order to build that momentum and put positive tape out there for themselves to look at and learn from and grow into the future. And right now they're not getting much of that positive tape. So I definitely think there is a degree of stubbornness that's hurting not only the short term, but the long term development.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because I have heard and I understand the concept of like, okay, let's have our guys continually play in our system to get the reps needed to understand their assignments long term. But when you have guys getting injured, like a Joyner, like a May, like a Eccles, partway through this game. You would have liked to have seen some type of an adjustment, like you said. And I think when we get blown out this bad, it just everyone kind of goes in self-preservation mode. Like you always hear it's a business decision when like Derrick Henry's coming flying at you. I always felt the same way with the Jets, and when we start like really losing in a season, like when you get late into a year and you have no shot at making the playoffs, why would guys go all out and risk their bodies? Every impact is like a car crash, and you only have so many throughout your NFL career. So kind of hold back and sort of, I guess, just dial it back. And I was hoping I wouldn't see that with a young team, because I want to see them hungry. I want to see them fighting for that first like contract that they want to sign. And I don't know how much longer. Like, do you see the team continuing to fight in these games when we're getting blown out like this, or do you notice um, the technique and everything start to slide and start to get lax as the game goes on? What's your opinion of the team when it gets blown out?
Yeah, I mean, to be completely honest, I don't really feel like effort is much of an issue with this team because before this game, really, the story of the whole season was they were better in second halves and they weren't starting games quickly, other than the Bengals game. Like the Panthers game, the Falcons game, they made those one-score games. They had no business doing so. The Colts game, they almost made a one-score game. So I feel like the competitive fire and the effort isn't really an issue. Sometimes we like to try to make it seem like it is just because the team isn't playing well. Sometimes you're just bad at football, and it's that simple. And it's not really, a product of effort, guys not hustling, because I definitely didn't see that in this Bills game and really throughout any of this season. So I definitely don't think effort is much of a problem. As much as it would be easier to point the finger at that and just say, play harder, motivate guys. I don't really think that's a problem. I think they're just getting outplayed and not playing good football. So, which I think is a good thing to an extent, the fact that they are playing with solid effort and not necessarily quitting in these games, which is pretty good. So, but I don't really think effort has been an issue, at least from my perspective.
Yeah, it feels like we're just severely outgunned. Like when you're looking at the Bills, they're an elite team. They retain all their starters. They bring back, they bring back all their starters, and then they add more talent through the draft and through free agency. And it feels like they just keep getting loaded up. And the Jets, we had the second pick last year, so for me, I'm not like losing my mind the way I think a lot of other fans are, because you kind of expect this. Like the Patriots loss felt worse because I felt like we should have been able to compete with them, and it just feels like they're so much further along than we are at this point in time. And I know they're getting all the players back from COVID from last year. So their record last year was maybe a little bit smoke and mirrors. But this season for me was all about the offense. And you look the last two off seasons, we've spent a ton of money on the offense, and we really haven't put too many premium assets into the defensive side of the ball. And like you mentioned earlier, LaMarcus Joyner, Vinny Curry, Carl Lawson, the three guys we bring in this year to really, shoot us in the arm, all get knocked out for the season. So when you're missing all these pieces plus a May, plus you have Jared Davis out for the whole first part of the season, Mosley's coming back after 2 years, it just seems like there's a lot of talent kind of missing from this team. So I guess for me, when I'm looking at this season, obviously I want to know what Zach Wilson is by the end of the year, or at least have a good idea of where his trajectory is starting to go. And I think offensively, coaching staff wise, I know as much heat as some of the coaching staff has taken throughout the year, I think at least the last few weeks, it's felt like the offense is calling the right plays, and it feels like they have the right system. It's just a matter of the quarterback getting the ball to those guys, because I felt like Mike White was a little limited in his deeper passes, something that I think we'll start to see when Zach Wilson starts to really click. He's just got to hit on the short passes. So I guess what are your thoughts on us not having spent too many premium assets on defense, and is it time to hit the panic button, or do you think we'll start kind of fixing it up this offseason?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, Carl Lawson coming back is going to be a huge one. As long as he is the same player, he's come back from this injury before. Doing it three times is going to be tough, but as long as he's the same player, I think that's one superstar for you right there, and an integral one to running the scheme. And that's part of the defensive stubbornness, is that they are kind of operating as if those injuries never happened. They're still relying on the four-man rush, not blitzing that much, playing very vanilla, relying on those guys to win, but they're not winning right now. But Carl Lawson were out there, then they probably would be winning at a much better rate. So that is a big addition right there. But I do think the way things are trending, it probably will be a defense heavy sort of off season because we are seeing a lot of positive development on offense. It looks like you have at least two long term pieces on your O line, AVT and Beckman, who hopefully we see at some point this season. McGovern, Fant, maybe two more starters for you. You can focus on right guard, but you have your running back. I think you have at least two starting receivers. Tight end is going to be a huge one. But there are a lot of pieces. We're starting to feel confident about a lot of pieces on offense. But defensively, you're going to need two safeties, two linebackers, probably another starting corner as well, depending on how Eccles comes back and plays. So there are a lot of huge holes on defense, and it definitely could be a defense-first kind of offseason. But they got a soft stretch of offenses coming up these next 6 games with Miami, Houston, Jacksonville. The Saints haven't been great in offense, especially now that Winston is out. So they do have a chance here to start to look more respectable in defense, maybe build some momentum, put some good tape out there. But it definitely could be a defense-heavy offense. And I think the offense, like you were saying, is starting to trend in a good direction. Obviously, the back-to-back 30-point games. This one wasn't nearly as pretty, but I really didn't think the offense was that horrible in this game. They weren't good, and obviously 14 of those points are in garbage time. But this one I think was just a lot of Mike White being really bad because there was some positive stuff going on offensively, and there was also the Corey Davis fumble that was a killer on a potential scoring drive. But they were doing some good stuff, and they were moving the ball a little bit. White just had a really bad game with the turnovers. He couldn't push the ball downfield. But there were plays to be made. This game, he wasn't making them like he was in the Bengals game. But the offense looks more confident. Michael Carter looks like a star already. Elijah Moore is starting to get into his own. So there's a lot of good things going on offensively. And I think it's a better situation for Zach Wilson to step into than it was when he stepped out. With LaFleur in the booth, I think he's been better up there. He has Joe Flacco on the sideline now. He's John Beck on the sideline. He got the chance to sit out, watch this offense operate, see how it looks when it's working, see how it looks when it doesn't this week with the Bills. So I think Wilson does have a really good opportunity to step in and lead a well-functioning offense over the final 8 games.
So speaking of coaching and everything, a former coach of ours had a lot to say. Rex Ryan talking about Robert Saleh. So here's what our former coach had to say about our current coach.
This is a horrendous defense. Now they're going to use, we never had our safety. So what? Everybody has a million injuries, let alone an above-average safety you're missing. I remember playing without 5 corners. It never looked like this. I think we were 5th in the league that year in defense. This guy's supposed to be a defensive guru. I heard everything, and I take it personal on this one. Everything I heard about was, this guy's a lot like myself, but without the bad part. Yeah, some of the bad part you need because this team doesn't play with any damn heart. That's the thing that's disappointing to me. And don't ever compare this guy to me, this Robert Saleh to me, because statistically, one time they were like a top defense. All right? Here's one thing they're going to be familiar with. 4 out of 5 years, the 49ers were dead last in their division. So he's going to be dead last again. So he's used to that. So to me, I'm a little pissed off about it when I hear that this guy, his background's a lot like yours. No, it isn't. No, it isn't.
So what did you have to think, or what do you have to say about what Rex said about Saleh? Saleh came out and said something along the lines of he knows where to find me. I'm not worried about what Rex says. He's always got something to say. So what are your thoughts on Rex's comments and is he right or, what's going on?
Yeah, it's a little bit beyond the typical Rex. He made comments on Saleh a couple of weeks ago, I think after the New England game. But this one definitely went a little bit beyond, just the headlines that he likes to draw now that he's at ESPN with him talking about taking it personally. But I think the thing for me is I don't really know who was comparing Saleh to him. I know I wasn't because they aren't really that similar other than being defensive guys that coach the Jets. So I don't know. I think it's Rex kind of just doing his thing, being a little bit over the top, looking for headlines. But it definitely was interesting to hear him say that he took it personally and all that. But I think it is a little bit. I don't know. I don't want to say it's over the line because this is a team that even though it is his first year, with the way the defense is playing, especially, It is, to a really embarrassing point, the way they're getting blown out so routinely. But it was really interesting. I guess it's definitely entertaining. I mean, we could use some entertainment right now.
Yeah, right. When I heard this, I'm thinking, all right, well, Rex had some pretty not so great defenses towards the end of his tenure here, and he definitely took over an elite team. Like, if we don't miss on that Vernon Golston pick, there's a real good shot we're playing for a Super Bowl, either '08, '09, or 2010. And Rex, with those first 2 years in '09 and 2010, I think it's everyone feels the energy of the excitement and everything that's going on. I think the comparison's definitely defensive head coach. The appearance of like a rah-rah kind of guy, motivator is what we were told from Robert Saleh. And it really doesn't feel right now like Rex is that wrong. Like, I do think that the talent level from this team to what Rex had is drastically different, from an offensive line perspective, from a defensive perspective, just up and down the board. So I don't know if it's necessarily a fair comparison, but I don't think Rex is necessarily wrong. I do want to see a little bit more emotion out of this team, I guess. But I don't know. I just every time I hear Rex talk, I just think like, oh God, what are you saying now? I don't know.
Yeah. So, but I mean, you're right. I think that's a big part of it too, just the talent, because I mean, once you started to see that talent wear off that he inherited, they weren't so good. They weren't this bad, but and this team, I definitely, even at the end of that tenure, don't think the Jets were as lacking in talent as they are right now. I mean, maybe it was comparable, but yeah, I think it goes both ways. On one hand, it's Rex being Rex, but on the other hand, I think some criticism is warranted when you're playing this bad, because this, like I said, this team is allowing the most points per game and yards per game in team history right now. So it's not like it's pretty bad or it's really bad. It's as bad as it's ever been for this team on defense. So I think harsh criticism like that is warranted, even though they are rebuilding. There are injuries. It's the first year of a rebuild. They're young, all this stuff. A lot of Jets teams have had those obstacles, and none of them were this bad. So it's at an all-time worst kind of level. So I think that type of criticism is warranted.
Now, do you think Salah should get a little more vocal with the team? Because I know he said he doesn't have to, yell at his guys or fire up his guys. They're grown men. Is there anything to it, or do you think there needs to be a fire under, some of these players?
Well, I think the thing about a lot of, because as Jets fans, we're so used to watching bad teams, and we always have these complaints. Gase needs to show more fire. Foles needs to show more fire. When you're losing, it's hard to push the right buttons that are going to please fans, because I feel like there's nothing that he could do that would really make us feel like, okay, we're losing by 28 every single week, but at least you're doing this. That feels great. So it is hard to do the right thing that's going to, make everyone happy when the results aren't there. Ultimately, it does just come down to, are you winning games? But I don't know. I think for me, the biggest thing is that I always try to understand there's a big difference between what we see from guys publicly, what they show us in press conferences, when they're on the sideline during a game, and the actual coaching that goes on in the locker room, in the facility. Because if I'm sure he is showing fire in the locker room and doing the best he can in there to motivate guys, get them pumped up. Because just because he doesn't come out in the press conference and start ripping his team and banging the table or leaving the press conference or whatever, it doesn't mean that he isn't showing energy in the locker room. So I think that's the biggest thing I always try to understand, is that the people we see on the podium isn't always the same person that's in the locker room where it really matters. So if he's not showing energy in the locker room, then I think that probably is a little bit of a problem, because that is a little bit too much complacency for a team that's playing as badly as it is right now. But I just don't think we necessarily know whether or not that's happening, because press conference is a press conference. He's talking to the media, not his players. So if he's not being energetic in the locker room, getting into guys a little bit more, I do think that's a problem. But I just don't think we're completely sure whether or not he is doing that.
Yeah, and I think it's a little knee-jerk of fans after this particular game. Like, I get it. The defense has been bad. But I think when you start comparing us against teams like we're going to play Miami twice, we're going to play the Texans, we're going to play the Jags, we're going to play the Eagles, teams that in theory the Jets should be a little bit more competitive with. You're talking about teams that had top 12 picks or so in the draft, as opposed to the Bills, who are one of the better teams in the NFL. I think I'll be showing a little bit more frustration if we come out flat continually after this. But you would have liked to have seen the Jets had 10 days to prepare. And just competitive is the term I think a lot of Jet fans are feeling right now. You just want to be competitive. Like, I don't mind losing, but like, make it close. Yeah. Make me feel upset that we missed a penalty and that's why we lost. Like, give me some hope. And it just feels like we're just like, first quarter, it's like, oh man, it's this same thing. I know exactly how it's going to go. Now, granted, we got to the half
opening
at 17.
Kickoff penalty. That's when you know the game's going to be over, when there's a penalty in the opening kickoff.
Oh, it's like, it's nonstop. Like, I don't understand why there isn't more of an emphasis on just don't take the ball out of the end zone. Like, you're getting a guaranteed 25 yards. Like, just let it go. On a punt, don't return. Just call a fair catch. I feel like statistically, you're more likely to not fumble. You're more likely to get a penalty on the return aspect of it, and you just wind up digging yourself a deeper hole. And we touched on it earlier with the offense. It felt like they did a lot of things that could have gone the right way. Michael Carter looks legit. Elijah Moore looks legit. If Mike White doesn't throw 4 interceptions and Corey Davis doesn't fumble a ball, this looks a whole lot different. I do think that the swap of quarterback, like, do you think we see Wilson this week, or do you think we go with Flacco? Do we go with White? What do you think happens, and how does that impact the way the Jets play against the Dolphins coming up?
Yeah, I would guess that Wilson plays this week, because it seemed like he was working his way back in practice last week, and that was close enough. He was even, good enough to be listed as doubtful for this game instead of out. So I would guess that he does, but I wouldn't be completely sure about it just yet. It'll be interesting to see what they do if he doesn't play, because, do you subject Mike White to getting thrown back out there? Do you turn to Joe Flacco now? That'll be an interesting decision. I kind of think they would go to Flacco if Wilson doesn't play, just because I think maybe not. That it will be an interesting one to see what they do if Wilson doesn't play, but I do think he will. But it'll be a tough matchup. Miami does a lot of things that New England does, and that stifled Wilson in the first game. Man coverage, which the Jets struggled against in this Bills game. Their receivers have had a hard time separating against man coverage this season. And we saw what Miami's defense is hot right now. We saw what they did to Baltimore on Thursday night, bringing a lot of pressure. So it could be a tough matchup for him to come back against. But I would bet that he plays, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, my gut feeling was that he'd come back next week against the Texans on the road. That way he's not in front of the fans necessarily the first time, where he could potentially be hearing some boos if things don't go the right way. I would like to see the Jets go to Flacco for this game. I think the Dolphins have had 10 days off after a very emotional win against the Ravens. I think they just wanted it more than the Ravens that game. Now, occasionally after a really high game, you kind of get lulled to sleep. The Jets go end up getting thumped. Now they might be able to turn around and catch the Dolphins sleeping. So I really don't know. But I would like to see Flacco come in and maybe have Wilson shadow him and just sort of watch how this Super Bowl winning quarterback, longtime vet in the league, prepares, as opposed to Mike White, who's only played in 3 games or 4 games now, I guess. I think there's probably something valuable to that, along with like not subjecting Zach to potentially another division rival that might have had a little bit more time to prepare for this team. All right, we are getting to the end of our segment with Mr. Michael Nania from Jets X Factor. Mike, anything else you wanted to take note of, or things that you saw throughout the game, or thoughts towards this next game up with the Dolphins?
Yeah, I think just from a positivity standpoint, I think we should be really excited about Michael Carter and Elijah Moore. Carter, I think it's getting to the point where it's legitimate to call him a very good starter, borderline star at this point. Over 80 scrimmage yards in 4 straight games. He's averaging over 70 on the season. His numbers in terms of broken tackles per carry and reception are elite. So he's in that conversation. He's had a fantastic start. And then Elijah Moore, even though he didn't put up the biggest numbers in this game, the touchdown he brought into the end zone was a legitimately great play. And he's not playing that much. I don't know why the Jets aren't playing him more. His snaps are fairly low, hovering around 50-50, but he keeps putting up pretty good numbers. So I'm very excited about those two guys, and I think Jets fans should feel comfortable that their team hasn't had a homegrown talent at either of those positions as good as these two guys are in a very long time.
Guys, this is Michael Nania from Jets X Factor. Michael, tell everyone where they can find you, and thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, as always. Follow me on Twitter at Michael_Nania. All my writings at jetsxfactor.com. Plenty of stuff every single day, analytics, film, pretty much the entire package of Jets content. So check us out over there.
I love it. Michael, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight and sharing some of your insight on this little bit of a therapy session that we're having on a Monday night.
Thanks for having me.
All right, guys, that was Michael Nania from Jets X Factor. His links are in the description down below, as well as the links to Jets X Factor. Make sure you check them out. They do some fantastic work over there. It's my first stop for like any in-depth analysis when I'm trying to get a little bit more knowledge on why our team maybe not be holding up on the X's and O's side of things. All right, let's jump into some of your comments and thoughts. I just put a link in the chat. I pinned it to the chat. So if you want to jump in and talk a little football with me, I can get your thoughts. I want to hear what you have to say and really, really get to know all that. Green Bean says, is Ryan frozen? Ryan is frozen. I don't know why. Let's see if I hide myself and then pop myself back on. Of course, this would happen. I wound up getting frozen. Oh, freeze Ryan. I need a freeze bean emoji for myself. All right. Now, can you guys see me at all, or am I totally black? No, I'm still. There we go. Now I'm live again. Now it looks like I'm all right. Had to refresh the screen. Yeah. So, stream link is in the chat if you want to jump in. Look, my thoughts on the whole Rex Ryan, Robert Saleh thing. I don't think Rex is wrong. I think he's fair to be critical of Robert Saleh. I do think there's probably a little bit to the talent difference for sure. I think Rex inherited a really good team, and I don't think that it's necessarily a fair comparison. But I think Rex is right to be a little upset with being compared to Robert Saleh when Saleh really hasn't done anything of I don't want to say of note because he's had some really good defenses, but I really think that there's some truth to what Rex is saying, and I just hope we could kind of iron this out throughout the rest of the season here and just get it right. Now, there were a few frustrating things that I saw throughout yesterday's game. One, the 4th and 1 or 4th and inches, where we get the delay game. That drove me bananas. I was like, I don't know how you don't call timeout to try and just reset and figure it out and get the play. Don't go back 6 yards because now you got to punt, and it just ruins any sort of potential momentum that you had. The second part was when Robert Saleh had the conversation with the refs, and the refs reviewed the call, and I forget what it was. I think it was an interception or a catch maybe that the Jets had, and they're like, "Hey, you're not going to win this. Don't challenge it." And then he throws a challenge flag. What are you doing, guy? Come on! This is the amateur hour. Let's get this thing right. I like when he gets fired up, and I do think he was right to want that call, but it was just sort of a weird, fluky kind of situation, nonetheless. What else are you guys talking about in here? AC, Rich Ritter, or no, sorry, where was it? I just saw a vodka break in here, and I'm laughing to myself. Who said that? AC says vodka break. Oh, geez. Joe says defense is extremely slow at all 3 levels. Look, we should have been a lot faster with Carl Lawson. We should have been a lot better with LaMarcus Joyner. Those I cannot understate how drastically those 2 injuries have really impacted this team. I think the linebackers being slow is something I wasn't prepared for. Mosley coming back, I was very skeptical as to how he would look. I thought he's played all right for the most part. I don't know if he's the elite guy that he once was, but he's definitely, I don't think he's a problem per se. Jared Davis is hot garbage. Jared Davis is not very good, and I really don't want to watch him too much longer. It's a shame Sherwood is out for the year. Quincy Williams is interesting because I don't love him in the pass protection, pass coverage. I don't like him in coverage, but he's a heat-seeking missile in the run game. I don't know. It does feel like this team is slow. It feels like we're not adapting on defense to put our guys in better situations, and it just feels like teams are going to be able to take advantage of it. Like when you don't have a rock-solid number 2 corner. Like Eccles is like fine. I don't mind him, but when he's out and you have a guy that's in Guidry, who I do like as a slot corner, but he's a backup slot corner and like for a reason. And now you put him on the outside and now he's getting it's when I'm looking at him, I'm seeing Diggs on the left-hand side. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. There's no way that this is going to go over well. It's just not. There's no way. Oh, I'm freezing. Why am I freezing? Nope, now I'm back. Sorry about that. I don't understand why you can't have Bryce Hall flip-flop back and forth. Like it feels to me that when you call a defense, the responsibilities for the outside corners should be relatively the same, just mirrored, right? Like maybe not. Maybe I'm totally off on that. And I'm sure I don't know. It just feels like there's better ways to be doing this whole thing. Kyle, thank you so much for the super chat. Kyle says JD's seat needs to start getting hot. He needs to bring in better talent, both in the draft and free agency. JD gets good trade value, but can't develop players. I don't like Joe Douglas's seat getting hot just yet. And let me tell you why. He's been here 2.5 years now, or close to it. Didn't get a draft the first year. And then he winds up getting a free agency and a draft class last year with Adam Gase, where I think he's probably trying to fit it more towards Adam Gase's offense. I think 𝐗-𝐅𝐚, I think Mims, I think Morgan were all part of that sphere of Adam Gase-ness, I guess. And then you look at like this year, like I like the players he brought in. Like Davis is having a little bit of issues holding on to the ball, and I think that's maybe that's why the Titans didn't want to hold on to him, or they saw some issues in his game. By and large, I do like Corey Davis. I think he's a rock-solid number 2, a low-end number 1. I think Elijah Moore could very well be a number 1. Like Nania said, I don't understand why he's not getting more playing time than he is right now. I think I saw a tweet from him. It was something along the lines of like 50 to 55% of the snaps is what Elijah Moore's in for. And that just doesn't feel like the right way to go about it. Let's see. You guys are saying I'm a little frozen. Man, I don't understand why I'm freezing. This doesn't make sense. Let me see. I probably have to turn off my server. That's definitely what it is. All right, we're gonna shut that down right now. Boom. All right, that should help with the stuttering a little bit. He needs to get better at both the draft and free agency. I think I'm okay with his talent acquisition. Like I think he understands talent because you look at the trades, he's done great. You mentioned that. I like Becton. I think he's a stud. The injury issues I don't think are necessarily fair to put on Douglas because the injuries weren't there in college with Becton. Mims, I'm perplexed about. I feel like he should be better than he is. So maybe that's a hard whiff on Douglas. Ashton Davis has actually played better the last few weeks. I was not thrilled with his play, but again, he's still only in his second year. So hopefully he can get a lot of valuable reps this year, and maybe he can fulfill one of those 2 safety positions long-term for us. That would be ideal. Zuniga, at best, is a depth piece. I do not think that he's a very good player. But again, second-year player. If he provides depth, then there's value in that. 4th round, 𝐗-𝐅𝐚 didn't love the pick. Morgan hated the pick. Clark Hasn't seen the field. 4th round for me, easy bust. Easy bust. Across the board on the 4th round. 5th round, Bryce Hall, home run. 6th round, Braden Mann. I don't want to call it a home run, but I think you got a starting caliber player there. So I think the talent was there in that first draft class to an extent. This year, I think he hit a home run on the first 4 picks. I think, obviously we have to wait and see what happens with Zach. So I shouldn't say it was a home run, but I do think that Zach will be the right quarterback for the job once he kind of figures it all out. I like Elijah Vera Tucker. I think he's going to be a stud at the left guard spot for a really, really long time. Elijah Moore looks as advertised. And then Michael Carter. Michael Carter is probably my favorite pick from this past draft. As much as I like Elijah Vera Tucker. Like, I love watching offensive linemen throw people. Like, watching Becton last year, ragdoll guys across the field, something special. And I think him and AVT are going to make a really formidable left-hand side of that offensive line. I don't know. There's some interesting pieces. I like Douglas. I do think Douglas is the guy for the job. It's just a matter of if he can put everything together. What else you guys talking about? Edward says Becton, they're gonna have to be watched. Next season will tell more about him. I don't know if we're actually going to see Becton again this year. That's what kind of perplexes me on this whole situation. Joe S. says we can't call Becton a stud just yet. I think we can call Becton a stud when he's on the field. I think it's the issue is really him not staying healthy, right? I feel like he's pretty good. Gitmo says Mims needs to play more so that he doesn't feel like he has to make a big play when he gets the chance. Something feels like he's in his own head. And I don't know. I really think we should have gotten more out of Mims than what we got. And I think his confidence is kind of shot. I think the Jets going out and going after Keelan Cole, Corey Davis, and drafting Elijah Moore probably tells you what Douglas was thinking about Mims. I think there's probably a reason he didn't take Mims in the 2nd round and he traded down and then finally felt okay taking him. If he had liked Mims, I don't think I think he would have drafted Mims initially as opposed to trading down. So I don't know. Something to think about. AC says, hopefully Clark can come back and be a decent guard. That's what we were hoping to see this year. I think you cannot bank on him at all. You just have to assume that's a thrown away draft pick, and anything you get out of him at this point is just okay. Delusional Jets fan says, it is coaching. Ulbrich also had John Franklin Myers try and defend Kyle Pitts on a touchdown pass in the Falcons game. He's clueless. He also had, was it Huff? I think it was Huff was in coverage in one of those touchdowns as well over, was it Hayden Hurst? I think. John Franklin Myers has, at least the last 2 weeks, has graded out better for the Jets, even though he hasn't been as impactful. He had the sack on Wentz last week. It was kind of a late sack. Wentz was running towards the line of scrimmage, and he just kind of caught him. It wasn't really for a loss. And then he almost had Josh Allen this time. Josh kind of ducked under John Franklin Myers' arm, and he couldn't quite get him. I felt like he was putting pressure on him, and I do like where John Franklin Myers is. I'm glad he's on our team. I think having that elite edge presence on the other side and Carl Lawson, I think will help him a lot. I think if he's getting keyed in on him and Quinnen, I think would benefit the most from Lawson really being out there. Harry W says, how about Seahawks losing again with Wilson? They did not look good. They don't look like a good team at all. Their defense is absolutely atrocious. And I'm not going to lie, I'm a little upset. I should say upset. I'm a little bummed that Jamal Adams actually got his first interception against a starting quarterback. Took him half a decade to do it, but he winds up getting it. And it was in the red zone too. So it was a big time play. It's a shame his best interception was in a losing effort where they wind up getting shut out. And I believe that's the first time in Russell Wilson's career that he was shut out. So obviously not that good. Joe S says James Morgan's going to the XFL next. Yeah. I think he's done in the NFL. He's gotten bounced from 2 teams already. Gitmo says Ashton Davis was a project coming out of Cal. He needs more time to see what he's got. Look, he's got a 4-year contract. He's halfway through year 2. He's got insane athletic ability. If he can put it together, it's going to look a lot better. You guys are saying this is a podcast because Ryan is still frozen. I wish I knew why, because my computer's not doing anything crazy right now. Let's see. Delusional Jets fan says, I had a feeling something bad was coming when Mike White got cocky with the media saying he thinks he should have been the first overall pick. Saying stuff like that never ends well. Well, yeah, that's it's never gonna end well, because there's only one first overall pick in any draft, and it better be the best player in said draft. And obviously, look, Mike White clearly was not going to be the number 1 pick, and I do think there's a lot of people and players that should feel that way. I think there's good to have a little bit of a underdog type mentality there. Stephen Gillingham says, congrats on Jamal on tying Vince Wilfork in career interceptions. Oh, that makes me happy. I'm really glad you said that. What else are we talking about? Green Bean says, what's up, Green Bean? I saw you in the chat. I just never acknowledged it. But hey, Green Bean. He says, here's an idea. The coaches have chosen to let players take their lumps and learn the hard way. No help, no crying. Go out there and learn the system inside and out. Thoughts? So we talked about it a little bit with Nania, and I know you were in here because you were the first person to comment in the stream. I did see that. I do think that there is something to be said for players playing within the system and getting really comfortable with it, knowing all their assignments all the time. For me, I think it depends if those players are going to be long-time staples, and is there a way to keep Hall on maybe the number 1 wide receiver while still having other parts of the defense kind of maintain their discipline or their scheme. Maybe that just sort of defeats the purpose of it. I don't really know. I do like them taking their lumps. I know you, me, and Matt have talked about this season being all about the offense, the development of Zach Wilson, and we knew we were going to have an up and down defense. We were going to lose a bunch of games because of our defense. We thought it was going to be because of the secondary. It's really been because of our defensive line and our linebackers more so than the secondary. I think if the Jets were able to stop the run a little bit more, I think it probably would have allowed us a little bit more flexibility. I don't know. Learning the hard way, I think, is probably not the worst decision. And if it means we get a better draft pick to possibly add some more talent to this team, I'm kind of all right with it. Again, offense. Zach Wilson. If Zach doesn't work out, all of this is for nothing anyway. AC says, baptized by fire. Seriously. That's exactly what they're going with. What else are we talking about? Evan says, Jets need to be better at awareness in the game. I think that goes from a coaching standpoint, too. I think the situational awareness needs to be dialed in, and not understanding that you're in a 4th and inches and to get out there and get the ball snapped on time is not good. That is a big red flag. FM says, Joe Douglas needs to go. We, under this regime, haven't won 1 game against teams in the AFC East. We've kind of been bad. Really bad. And look, hopefully we get a win this season against a division opponent. We got 2 against the Dolphins. We got another against the Bills, although I think the Bills are probably going to be more of a resting team. Technically, we did beat the Bills 2 years ago, end of the season, right? Was that McCagnon or was that Douglas? I think that was Douglas. Pretty sure it was. Yeah, not ideal. I get it. I saw a Facebook comment in here. Austin says Jets should hire Rex Ryan again. Look, I know we love the nostalgia of Rex Ryan, and I would love. There's nothing more than being able to relive the 09 and 2010 days of the Jets, because for me that was the closest we've really been. Like I was around for the 98 championship game, and I thought that we had a really good shot that year. But I thought we had a chance for sustained success with the 09 and 2010, and it just didn't come to fruition. What else you guys talking about? Jonathan says, this next draft needs to be a swap of last year. To balance our team out, we need help on defense. Yeah, and look, I've brought it up before. I think the issues have been Carl Lawson's out, LaMarcus Joyner's out, Vinny Curry's out. That's a lot of capital that you put on the defensive side of the ball that's just not playing up to snuff. And C.J. Mosley's taken up a ton of cap space. Maybe not so much this year. He's taken up 7.5. But overall, his contract's eaten up a lot of space. And look, we're still even paying Tremaine Johnson this year. Like, that's how bad like Maccagnan signings were. Like, you have these guys from 4 years ago that are still hitting our cap. So it's not good. But I agree, we do have to go on the defensive side of the ball, and I think it'll be a little balanced. I think what you'll see is the Jets will try to address in some capacity, whether between free agent, draft. I think the Jets try to address tight end. I think they try to address guard or center. And then I think they try to bring back a right tackle in some capacity. Defensively, I do think we are going to get a new edge rusher in the draft. I think that's long overdue as a first-round pick. I do think that there's an opportunity to get a cornerback maybe in the second round, and then you're going to have to load up with some linebackers as well. So we'll see what winds up happening. Oh, we got our buddy Eli coming on. Eli, you ready? Give me a thumbs up. There we go. Eli, what's up, brother?
Hey, Ryan. Yesterday was brutal. It was brutal. It was just a punch in the gut. You know, Mike White had all exciting 2 weeks with Mike White. That came to an end. It was a nice, fun 2 weeks, but it's over now. And then our defense is brutal, man. Our defense cannot compete. And I don't know what the issue is. I mean, yes, there's not a lot of talent. But, I mean, to say that Salah isn't involved is an understatement, because this is on pace to be the worst defense in NFL history. And it kind of contributes Salah. It's like he's not adjusting. I'm watching the same stuff. Like, I have a perfect example. It got me frustrated. Even I was paying attention to it. They kept on putting, okay, so after 𝐗-𝐭𝐬 was injured, when the Bills were in the red zone the whole time, 𝐗-𝐅 came on. Diggs is an absolute mess. I mean, he's amazing. And then they kept on putting 𝐗-𝐅 on him one-on-one in the end zone. And it's like, what are you doing? It's very obvious that a 5'9" undrafted free agent corner that can't even start on the Jets should not be playing one-on-one man coverage on Diggs. It just didn't make sense. You know?
Yeah, no, I felt the same way. And as soon as I saw 𝐗-𝐅 come in, I was like, all right, well, they're going to try and attack him, and hopefully he's in the slot or he's doing something different. And then I see him like out wide. I was like, well, that's not good. And then I see Diggs over there. I was like, well, that's really not good. And then they throw at him. I'm like, okay, well, at least he was out of bounds. And then they go back and do it again. I was like, oh, come on. I was like, if I can make this call, like clearly a lifetime coach has got to be able to make this call.
Exactly. I mean, what? I'm a 14 in high school. What do I know about football? Like, I mean, it's just frustrating things like that. And then, like, I mean, listen, it's not a talented roster on defense. To say that it is not true. But it should not be allowing, like, 45 points a game. That is next level bad. So in the past 4 weeks, we've allowed 175 points. The 2000 Baltimore Ravens allowed 165 points the entire season.
Well, they're also like the best defense of all time. So like that's grain of salt there, little bit.
Right? But to allow more in 4 games, but like that was mind blowing. Like I understand they're one of the great teams. That still shouldn't be happening. I mean, 175 points in 4 games is horrible. It's like Madden numbers. Do you see Madden? That's what that is. I mean, I've never seen such a bad. I mean, the Jets were always known for horrible offense and incompetent defenses. Now, what happened? Like now, our offense is just as incompetent, and our defense is putrid. What happened? I don't. It's frustrating.
Oh, dude, I don't know. I don't know if. I guess you can't hear on your end. I see some people in the chat calling you 𝐗-𝐅𝐴 because the audio is like a little crackly, and I don't know if that's on my end doing something or if it's you.
I'm in a room. I'm in a room with a lot of echo. Hold on. I'm going to.
Oh no, it's like
Go to a different
it's
room.
like it's
Maybe
got
that'll be
some stuff playing around. All right, Eli. I'm gonna jump to some more
Maybe
callers.
my headphones. Hold on. Let me disconnect.
Whoop. Let's see what it
Okay.
is.
Talk to you next Monday.
see you later, dude. All right, that was Eli. Thank you so much, Eli, for jumping on. I'm going to end this at 9 o'clock. Normally I go for 2 hours, but I think with the camera issues I'm having, freezing up, I'm not exactly sure why that's happening. And I just want to watch Monday Night Football. So there's that. Sorry. Let's see if we can get out of here for the next 5 minutes. Steven says, FM, I agree with you about Joe Douglas versus Tannenbaum. That's my point. He can trade for picks, but can't draft. I don't know. I don't want to say that Douglas can't draft because at least his draft seemed to make more sense than like 𝐗-𝐭𝐬's, than 𝐓𝐞𝐚𝐦's. Tannenbaum had a run for a while of some really, really good draft picks in the Mangini regime, leading all the way up to, I don't know, what would our last good pick might have been? Keller, maybe, with him. Probably. Then we had Muhammad Wilkerson in there. Kyle Williams was in there at some point. I don't know. I like Joe Douglas. I do think he's the right guy for the job. I think he's trying to address the offensive line. He spent a ton of assets in it. And I do think that the left side is sort of fixed. Like, I think we have some long-term pieces. But we'll see. Armando says, need tight end and pass rush. Also need to throw down the field more. They are down by 30. Or before they are down by 30. Yeah, it's tough, right? Like if you're putting yourself in long downs and distances by having a false start, by having a holding penalty, these issues that we run into week in and week out just drives me up a wall because you there's not many plays you draw up for 2nd and 15, 2nd and 20. You just try to get out of there, get as many yards as you can, and then punt it down the field. So I don't love it, but I do think we need to get the tight end help. I think you have a big-bodied target in a tight end that can create mismatches, and the Jets are definitely missing that. And it seems like it's been a kind of a staple of that 49ers team out there. Let's see. What are you guys talking about? Joshua says Ryan strike a pose. I don't know. I know, right? I should do something goofy, but then I'm going to be stuck in that same capacity. Now I just look like I'm looking off to the side, the entire time. Let's see. Harry says Marcus May, free safety, injured reserve. Connor McDermott, O tackle, injured reserve. Leroy Reynolds, linebacker, injured reserve. Jamien Sherwood, defensive back, injured reserve. Look, we got a lot of injuries, but every team's got a lot of injuries. Just got to figure it out. Oh, man, that's even more. You got more in here, too. You got Huff, injured reserve. LaMarcus Joyner, injured reserve. Tyler Croft, injured reserve. Carl Lawson, injured reserve. Zane Lewis, injured reserve. Man, when you put it like that, now it's really depressing. But it's tough. Nicholas says it right. He says, tough to watch every week. It's hard to be committed when you have this many losses week in and week out. And this kind of like inability to just move the ball, score points, stop the other team scoring points. Not good. Not good, not good, not good at all. Take us back to the draft with Green Bean. I can't wait. Green Bean, Matt, and I do our live stream for the draft each year, and it's always so much fun. Honestly, it's the highlight of my entire football season because the Jets wind up crushing me every week. Joe says a quarterback named Wilson will lead us to a Super Bowl within 3 years. A quarterback named Wilson. Interesting. So does that mean you think that the Jets could possibly trade for Russell Wilson? Or do you think it will be Zach Wilson that leads us within the the next 3 years, right? Play on words. Although I'm not so sure Russell Wilson would be able to help us much more because of how poorly we've played and how poorly his team played and how he can't help them either. Oreo says, Robert Saleh says all the right things in the presser, but let us down game day. This is why I have trust issues. Tell me about it. Right? Like I expected this like rock solid head coach. And I do think he's the guy. I really do. I think the players do like him. I think he's got, I don't know. I want to see them adapt more. I don't want to see them be as stubborn as they are. Try to make some adjustments here, and they're just not doing it. Dark Soldier says, now that Russell Wilson returned early, what draft position do you think we will get from Seattle's pick? I think we're going to get a top 15 pick. What would let's see, 14 teams make the playoffs? I think Seattle misses the playoffs. I believe they're last in their division right now. 49ers. I don't know if I think the 49ers are ahead of them. So you're talking 14 minus 32. What is that? 18. So that 17 and below. Is that right, math wise? So 17 or better is where I think we wind up being. I think it's going to be a top 15 pick. I think Seattle's really bad. I don't think they're going to win a whole lot of games in that division. So, like Edward Stewart says, top 15 pick. Delusional Jets fan says, I like what LaFleur has been doing the past 3 weeks, though he didn't even call a bad game against Bills. Mike White just sucked. Yeah, I like LaFleur. I like actually the last 3 or 4 weeks, I think he's had it right. It's just been, the turnovers from last week or this past week really put us in a bad spot and just going up against a far more talented team. So I am right there with you. All right, boys, it's gotten to 9 o'clock. I'm going to hop off. I'm going to watch some Monday Night Football. Hopefully I can figure out why my camera is freezing up on me. Not the best. But thank you guys for hanging out for this brief hour stream. We will be back tomorrow with the Talking Jets panel, myself, O'Leary, and Green Bean, giving you all our thoughts from yesterday's game and hopefully maybe provide a little bit more calmness going into tomorrow. So, guys, my name is Ryan. I've been your pilot. This is Jets Talk, signing off. J-E-T-S.